Hello everybody. I see a lot of Sri Lanka, see some India. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Let's get started. So, hello everyone. A good evening for the ones from Sri Lanka, and good morning, good afternoon for everybody. I'm Sajani, and I will be diving into a topic that often gets overlooked in traditional education, but I feel it's so important in the field of UX design. And that is how to build strong relationships with your key stakeholders. Now, this is something that many of us UX designers kind of learn the hard way on the job. And this is an absolutely essential skill as a UX designer to know how to effectively collaborate with other roles while also showcasing your impact as a UX designer and be an influence within your team and your organization. So before we get to all that good stuff, let me tell you a little bit about the work I do. I currently work as a senior UX designer at IFS, and I specialize in enterprise asset management, aviation, and defense design. So actually, I mean, before joining IFS, I honestly didn't know much about these fields, and I never like envisioned myself working in aviation and asset management. But now that I'm immersed in this work, I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way, right? I've found such a great passion for this work and these domains, and I'm always just so grateful for the opportunity to contribute to such impactful industries. And in my role, I focus on making sure that companies can keep the equipment like machineries running smoothly and efficiently. And we use artificial intelligence to predict when machines might break down so that we can do maintenance, so that maintenance can be done before it's too late. And this is especially important in like industries like aviation, oil and gas, manufacturing, where even a small glitch can lead to very big problems and costs. So I work closely with a lot of stakeholders in these fields to design user-friendly systems that can help them make smart decisions and avoid downtime. And in the aviation sector, I work on user experiences for ground operation systems, aviation maintenance management platforms as such. So, of course, in aviation, safety and efficiency are top priorities. So I collaborate with engineers, pilots, aircraft technicians, regulatory experts to meet those strict aviation standards while also, trying to push the boundaries of innovation, right? Coming up with those new ideas. So whether it's keeping planes safe in the air or making sure that large manufacturing plants are running smoothly, my day-to-day work as a UX designer consists of collaborating with people and making these complex tasks easier for everybody involved. So that's a little bit about all the fascinating stuff I work on. And from what I just told you, I think you can tell that I collaborate with lots of different kinds of roles on a daily basis. And along the way, I have learned how to efficiently communicate and collaborate with all these diverse roles. And I have learned how to stand out and showcase my value and impact as a UX designer to my organization. And this is exactly what I want to talk to you about today. For the agenda today, I will touch upon the types of roles that we usually collaborate with as a UX designer, why it's crucial to get along well with these diverse roles, and I will tell you exactly what steps I took when I was new to IFS to build those strong connections with the other roles and my stakeholders. And then I will also give you some tips on how to have impactful one-on-ones with your manager. And I think finally we can wrap things up with a chance for you to ask questions, any questions that you might have. So if that all of that sounds good, let's get right to it. Now, you as a UX designer or a product designer will work with different kinds of people and roles. Now, this could be project managers, software engineers, product managers, data analysts, product owners, marketing specialists, customer support representatives, business analysts, system architects, software architects, or even executive stakeholders. And there's so much more. So let's talk about why exactly it is important for us UX designers to build good relationships with all these roles, with all these other roles. Our job is not just about designing things, right? It never is. It's also about connecting with the people who have the insights that can make our designs impactful. And to connect with those people is very important because first, you need to understand the requirements of your project. Now, our stakeholders, they know stuff. They know stuff that we don't know, right? For example, if you take product managers, business analysts, or even executive stakeholders, they know the business goals. And our end users, they know their needs and their frustrations. And our software engineers, our system architects, they know the technical constraints. So by cultivating a strong relationship with all these people, you can tap into their information. Now, for example, let's take a scenario, okay? You've been asked to make an application that will help pilots access their planes or their jets remotely, so that the pilot is not there. They're away from the plane, but they have to access the jet remotely to extract some confidential information stored in the database. Within all of this, within a time period of 5 seconds. What does that mean? What did that mean? Like, did you even understand what that meant? Like, do you know where to start? Like, do you know what you're supposed to do? I really don't think so, right? It doesn't, the project doesn't really have to be this complicated either. But to get that starting point, this is where having a good relationship with the people you work with come into play, right? So by having a good relationship with the other roles, you can get a comprehensive understanding of the context of your designs and what it is to achieve. And to access that information, you need to have a good relationship with your stakeholders. And next, we have feedback. Now, feedback is something that's very important for UX designers because we run an iterative design process. Regular communication with stakeholders mean that we can tweak our designs early and often, and we can make sure our designs evolve in response to user needs as well as business objectives. Which leads to the next point, alignment. Projects often go off track when the people working on that project are not aligned. So one person does one thing, another one does some other thing, and everyone's just all over the place with no alignment. Things just don't go well. So by building a rapport with your stakeholders, you can make sure that your design decisions are aligned with the project goals as well as the organization goals. So keep your stakeholders involved throughout the design process, and then you can minimize misunderstandings and conflicts. Next, we have advocacy. Now, this is definitely something that has helped me so much. I benefited greatly from the good relationships that I had cultivated with my senior stakeholders because they ultimately turned into my allies for advocating the value of UX design. And I was able to secure resources, gain buy-in from my youth strategy initiatives, and overcome roadblocks, all thanks to their support. So if you need support, make sure you have built good relationships with the people who can support you. Next, we have collaboration. Now, trust is obviously key for teamwork and collaboration. When your stakeholders, when your co-workers trust you, when they trust your expertise, when they trust your judgment, they're way more likely to support your decisions and collaborate closely with you throughout the project lifecycle. And finally, and most importantly, we have influence. With with great relationships come great influence. Our relationships with stakeholders give us the opportunity to influence strategic decisions related to the products and the services we design. And by demonstrating the value of user-centered design, you can shape the direction of projects and you can contribute significantly to the project success. So these are some of the reasons why I said building strong relationships with the people you work with is essential for the success of your work and also your career as a UX designer. Moving on, are you new to your organization? Right now, are you new to your company? Have you joined something recently? Like you're waiting to join something? Not yet, or just about to be, maybe, hopefully? If you are a new UX designer or product designer to your organization, comment on the chat. And if so, let's talk about what you need to do when you first join an organization as a UX designer. I joined IFS on the 13th of June, 2022. So to give you a little brief about the groups at IFS, like how IFS is structured, IFS actually it has a lot of groups, like you can see here. We have service management, supply chain management, asset management, experience framework, human capital management, and there's a couple of more like that. There's a lot more. And each of these groups, they consist of around 70 odd people. And I joined the asset management group here. And this group is, it's about a group of 90, maybe 90 plus people from all over the world, right? And I was, in fact, the first UX designer for this entire group. So at the time I joined, IFS was in the process of strengthening and growing the UX design community. And there were other UX designers in these other groups. And they were also in like the process of hiring more UX designers. And I was brought into asset management to establish the UX design discipline and drive the UX strategy forward of the asset management group. And this was honestly, it was honestly a daunting task, right? I mean, I'll be honest, I was overwhelmed. It was a big group of people, 90 team members, plus it was a global group, right? Everybody's working remotely. We have people from the States, we have people from Sweden, Norway, London, a couple of people from Sri Lanka. So I was overwhelmed. And I didn't know anyone there. Like I didn't know anyone within the group yet since I was new. And they also had like an established structure of working, which I knew needed some change to fully embrace the UX design process. So in order to lead that change, I knew I had a lot to do. This is when I went in search of my tribe, my people. And that is the community of UX designers, UX researchers, and UX writers at IFS. At the time I joined, we had around 30 people within the UX community, but it has grown so much more now. And at that time, so we had around 30, and I connected with every single one of them individually to hear their stories, because they are people that have already established this process within their own groups. So I wanted to hear about how they approached this, what their experience was like. Did they maybe face any kind of resistance from their groups? Like what worked, what didn't work? And I got to know, I learned so much from the relationships that I built within everyone in the UX community. And I used their experiences and those lessons that I learned to strategically plan how I would approach this change within my group. And since then, I have established a good working design process within my group, hired a few more UX designers, and now my group is thriving more than ever before. So here's what you need to do when you first join an organization. Whether your company has a low or high UX maturity, this applies to all cases. First, you need to do some digging, explore, do your research, figure out what you need to know, and then find out who will be the best person to tell you everything about it. Now, that doesn't mean like you don't need to connect with everybody, right? For example, my group had around 90 people when I joined, and I didn't go connect with all 90 of them. But what I did was first I took some time to understand the team dynamics within my group, right? So there were 90 people. How were they categorized, and how were they organized into these teams? And I also took some time to understand the organizational culture, and I also took some time to find out who is responsible for what and who exactly will help me best to achieve my goal. Next, I connected. So I reached out to those key people that I identified. For example, I reached out to some of the main program managers within my group, or I think people would call them project managers, and the directors, and also the vice president of my group. So also, additionally, I expanded my outreach like beyond my immediate group and scheduled one-on-one meetings with the UX designers from the other groups. So I introduced myself as the UX designer of the asset management group, and then I outlined my intentions for the call. I didn't want them to feel that I'm wasting their time, right? That's definitely not a good first impression. So the first contact was obviously not that long. It was like a very brief introductory call to get the connection going. And then I showed them that I'm seeking their guidance, and I'm more than willing to like learn from their experiences and their domain knowledge. After establishing that initial connection, I then made a conscious effort to deepen these bonds into a genuine friendship, right? These are people you work with, and you need to build a genuine relationship with them. So I would seek feedback from them from time to time. And also, I took note of like the personal details that they shared during our conversations, things like the names of their family members, or like how many pets they had, or their interests in sports, hobbies. Like for instance, like I discovered that some of my colleagues actually really enjoyed weekends spending on their boats and yachts. And I also had a lot of colleagues that really loved going on these skiing trips with their kids. So I leveraged those personal interests. Like I use them as opportunities to bond with them more on a personal level. And I wanted to strengthen that connection beyond just work. So once I have done these 3 steps, then I did them all over again. So consistency has been key, obviously. When I first joined, I made it a point to repeat these efforts, I think over 40 times. I mean, making sure that I was consistently building and nurturing relationships with my colleagues, especially if you're working remotely, right? Which was the case for me. And even now, whenever it's necessary or beneficial, I continue to invest time and effort into maintaining those connections, because I have seen firsthand, I have experienced it and seen it, the significant positive impact that good relationships can have on your work and also your career. How was I adopted? What does this mean? How was I adopted? So, let me tell you, in UX design, sometimes you may face a little resistance in terms of building relationships. Not everyone will immediately see eye to eye with you, right? Especially if they've been used to doing things a certain way for a long time. So people have their own established methods, and they might be a little hesitant to embrace change, or maybe fully understand the value of UX design. And you know what? That's perfectly normal, But here's the thing, this is something you can definitely change, right? And I can say that with absolute certainty because I've been there myself, right? I've been there when I first joined, but here I am now. I was the first UX designer for a group of 90 plus people. But I am fully adapted to my group now. They've embraced the changes that I have brought on, and I am leading even more UX initiatives to make the process better and better, and I'm driving the UX strategy of my group forward. So if I was able to navigate through those challenges and get smoothly adapted to my group and bring others on board with the UX process, then I believe that you can definitely do it too, right? All it takes is a little patience, some persistence, and a few creative approaches, but it's absolutely within your reach. So actually, let me tell you about one of my first projects, one of the experiences that I had while working on one of the first projects that I worked on at IFS. So I was paired up with a program manager, or you would call it a project manager, who had been with the company for, can you guess? How long do you think he was at the company for? 25 years. He's been there for 25 years. And obviously, he had his own way of doing things, and he wasn't exactly sold on the whole UX design process. But here's the thing, he's got one of the most brilliant minds in our group, and he's an absolute legend in asset management and the aviation domain. So I knew that I needed him on my side desperately. So this program manager, he kind of had a habit of jumping straight into solution mode, which is exactly the opposite of the way I work, right? Because I want to first dig into what the problem is. Why is this the problem? Is it exactly the problem? Who is this a problem for, right? You know how UX designers work. So one day, I convinced him to join me in working on the user flows of that project. So we took some time and I encouraged him to kind of dive into like every tiny detail, right? Thinking about these different scenarios that our persona could face, the potential errors, the what ifs, and it turned out to be an incredibly productive session. He was so into it that he wanted to do it again the next day and the next. And before I knew it, it had turned into a whole week of brainstorming workshops. And you know what the best part is? Eventually, during like kind of a big meeting with our VP, our vice president, and the rest of the managers, he spoke up about like how valuable our work on the user flows had been. He admitted to everybody that it really helped him see things from a new perspective. And he told everyone that it helped him to consider things that he had never thought of before. And that moment was such a breakthrough, right? Because it showed that he was starting to embrace the UX process and also support the changes I was making. And this was one of the key ways that I strengthened my relationships with my coworkers. That was by working together, right? Collaborating together on a project and then showing the value of my work and of UX design. And now I will talk about 5 other strategies that I use to build solid relationships with my coworkers. This might seem like common sense, guys, but it's very important. You need to communicate frequently. You need to keep everybody in the loop. It is essential. I make sure to update my stakeholders regularly on our project progress. I involve them in the decision-making processes, and I also seek their input and insights every step of the way, right? And of course, I take the time to listen, truly listen to what they're saying, right? And listen to their feedback, what are their concerns, and also ask the correct questions. And I tend to ask more open-ended questions so that I can really dig deep into what their core issue is rather than seeing the surface level issues. So also when it comes to incorporating their input into the design, I always try to find the right balance, right? Rather than just incorporating everything they say into the designs, I integrate their ideas where they make sense. So I always try to find that right balance. And if non-design stakeholders can understand you easily, then that's a very good sign that you're communicating frequently, effectively. Drop all this complex jargon and explain yourself and advocate for UX in everyday language. Which leads to the next point. I made it a priority to advocate for UX design within my group. I wanted everyone to see that I wasn't just adding more work to their plate, right? I was, in fact, making our processes more efficient and effective. So to do this, I emphasized the value of UX in achieving our organizational goals. And I used a variety of methods to make my case, like data-driven insights, case studies from other teams, user research. They all played such a crucial role in demonstrating the impact of user-centered design on our business outcomes. So by presenting this concrete evidence of the benefits of UX, I try to help others understand the importance of what we do, the importance of UX design. And you know what? The more people that understood my role and understood the value of UX design, the more support I received. So this support, it didn't just help me in my work, right? It also helped me build a stronger network, stronger relationships with my colleagues. And I mean, after all, right, when everyone is on the same page and working towards that common goal, it's much easier to collaborate and build trust. So remember, advocating for UX, yes, it is about promoting the value of your work and also the value of UX design, but that's just not it, right? It's also about building understanding, gaining support, collaborating, and ultimately strengthening the relationships across your team. Next, it's also very important to understand your stakeholders on a deeper level. Now, as UX designers, I know empathy is such an important skill that any UX designer would have, but it's not just a skill we use for our work, right? It's also very essential for building strong relationships. So take the time to truly understand their concerns and reservations. Like, why are they hesitant? What's driving their hesitancy, right? Especially if they're hesitant about adopting the UX design process, right? Then you really need to take some time to understand what their concerns are. Try and understand their goals, like what are they motivated by? What are their challenges? And then you can leverage that understanding to get them on board with your ideas. So one of the most effective strategies that I've found is involving stakeholders in brainstorming sessions, workshops, design reviews, and even sometimes inviting them as observers during the usability tests. That can be very enlightening for them, right? When they see firsthand how users interact with the product, it can be very eye-opening for stakeholders, especially when they've witnessed users struggling with something that they thought was pretty straightforward. So by empathizing with your coworkers, you can address the root issue rather than the surface level issue and move forward together. Now, my last two point, guys, last 2 points, they might seem like common sense, but they are essential for building strong relationships with your colleagues, right? They're worth highlighting because they're so important. Being trustworthy and adaptable speaks volumes about your character, right? And it makes you someone that others want to work with and build friendships with. Firstly, you need to be reliable, right? It's so important that you're a reliable person and that you consistently deliver high quality work. And when issues arise, like when some problems come up, Don't shy away from them. Don't hide from them. You might not have like an immediate solution, right? You might not know how to solve it then and there, but that's completely fine. What matters is that you address the problem head on and you show others that you're proactive and you're committed to finding the solution. Secondly, you need to stay flexible and adaptable in the face of change. Whether it's stakeholder demands or evolving user needs, UX designers need to remain open to adaptation, right? Show a willingness to collaborate and iterate on designs, and you're okay with things changing, you're okay with change, right? And that flexibility, it makes you an easy and enjoyable person to work with. It might be frustrating for you, but don't think of it that way, right? Because this just makes you an easy and enjoyable person to work with. And it fosters stronger relationships with your colleagues along the way, right? They feel like they like working with you. So those are the 5 strategies that I mentioned. Communicating frequently, advocating for UX, understanding your stakeholders, and being trustworthy and being flexible. So now, before we dive into the next part of the session, let me ask you a quick question. Who do you think is the most important stakeholder that you will ever work with? Any guesses, guys? Who do you think will impact your work and your career the most? Or at least in my opinion. If you haven't guessed it already, it's your manager. It's your very own manager, right? Your manager holds a very important role in your professional journey, arguably the most significant one. They influence not only your day-to-day work, but also your career trajectory and also your overall well-being, right? Your mental health. So building a strong relationship with your manager is very, very, very important. And I myself, I've been very fortunate to have 3 exceptional managers throughout my career, and their support and guidance have been so instrumental in my growth, both professionally and personally, right? From encouraging my personal development to opening doors to new opportunities. They've played such an important role in shaping who I am today and where I've reached in my career. And all of that didn't happen by chance, guys. I made a deliberate effort to cultivate strong relationships with each of my managers, and it's paid off in ways that I couldn't have imagined. So, if there is one relationship worth prioritizing in your professional life, it's undoubtedly the one with your manager. So, let's explore around 3 tips, right, for making your one-on-one meetings with your manager as effective as possible. Because um, sometimes, like, not everybody directly works on projects with their managers. Especially, I don't work with my manager on projects. I just report to my manager on the work I do, updates and stuff. So these one-on-one meetings are often like where you'll have the most interaction with your manager. So it's important to make the most of them. First and foremost, preparation. Preparation is key for effective one-on-one meetings with your manager. Whether your meeting is an hour long, 30 minutes, or even just 15 minutes, it's essential to come prepared, right? One helpful strategy that I have used along the way is to maintain a record of like my weekly achievements, tasks, small wins, kind of things. I think you call that a brag sheet now. But I personally I have my brag sheet on a Fig Jam board, and I log all my weekly accomplishments, tasks that I did well, and any small wins that I had. And I also add a screenshot of whatever it is to kind of better recall the details. Like if I, for example, conducted a UX advocacy session, then I would have a screenshot of the session and maybe the survey results of like what people said about it. And I would log those down in a weekly basis on my FigJam board. So before each one-on-one, then I would review my brag sheet, and then I would identify all the key highlights that I want to share with my manager. So that helps me make this clear agenda, right? Then I can cover the project updates, any roadblocks that I've encountered, or like if I want to bring up any topics related to my career development. So in this way, I can like reflect on my successes, my challenges, and also my future goals, right? So it makes sure that this discussion is like well-rounded, productive, and also laser focused. So in my experience, guys, preparation has always paid off, right? By taking that little amount of time to get organized, I found that any meeting, not just your one-on-ones, any meeting can be more productive and meaningful. So remember to always be prepared. It's a strategy that never fails, I promise. Besides also having this clear agenda, right, and highlighting your accomplishments, project updates, and all that, there's one crucial thing that you shouldn't overlook during your one-on-one meetings, and that is small talk. I get it. Not everyone likes small talk. It gets awkward. But it's a skill worth mastering because it helps you connect with others. It helps you build. It also helps you maintain connections. So when you're meeting with your manager, take a moment for some casual conversation, right? Ask them how they're doing. Ask them about their weekend, perhaps. My one-on-ones always fall on a Monday, so my perfect question was, how was your weekend? And it fits so well, right? So instead of just replying with a generic, good, how about you? Don't do that. Try sharing a bit more, right? Maybe you caught a movie during the weekend, or you spend the day playing cricket with your friends or some other sport, right? So these small details, they make things less awkward, right? They can spark a personal connection based on shared interest. Now, if your manager liked the movie that you watched, then that's a shared connection. That's a shared interest. So don't shy away from small talk, guys. It's a very powerful tool for building relationships. Next, and something that's very important, be loud about your impact. Be loud. Another important lesson I've learned is to be vocal about your contributions during your one-on-ones. My VP, that's my vice president, something that he always says, don't be the best kept secret. Did you get that? Don't be the best kept secret. It's essential to showcase your impact and the value that you bring to your team and organization. Highlight the significance of your UX design contributions by sharing success stories, metrics, user feedback. And if you don't advocate for yourself, no one else will. But also, guys, keep in mind at the same time, it's important to find a balance between being confident and being boastful, right? I know I called that a brag sheet, but don't go bragging. That's not nice. Find a balance and speak up about your achievements and the value you bring, whether it's advocating for a raise, seeking a promotion, or pursuing new opportunities. If you don't want to be in your role anymore and you want to move to a new role, you want to get promoted. So don't hesitate to voice your accomplishments and your aspirations during your one-on-one meetings. Because if you don't tell them about how good you are, then no one else is going to. Another point that's much worth highlighting is the importance of being proactive. I shared this before. If you have run into a problem, don't shy away from it. Show that you're being proactive about it, you're addressing it. Also, during your one-on-one meetings, don't hesitate to share your thoughts and opinions with your manager, right? Especially when it comes to like improving things like the processes, the way groups are working, tools, team collaboration. There's nothing that you cannot share your thoughts about. So your one-on-one meeting is not just about, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this, and then your manager will say, okay, great, great, great. It's not like that, right? It's a space, it's an open space where you can share your thoughts and opinions. So build that trust by providing regular updates, checking in promptly, and also addressing their feedback and their concerns. And also, most importantly, take the initiative to drive UX activities forward. Take that step forward. Like I myself, I'm an introvert, right? You might not believe it, but I am an introvert. But I always push myself out of my comfort zone because I want to be seen as an influential team member, right? By stepping up and taking the lead and driving those UX strategy initiatives forward, you'll also be seen as an influential team member, somebody that can be trusted and somebody that other people can look up to. So, as we come to the end of our discussion, I'd like to leave you with some final thoughts and like a simple reminder to help you stay on track as a proactive, influential UX designer who maintains trust and respect within your team and organization. First off, listen intently. Listen intently. That means genuinely caring about what others have to say and respecting their perspectives. Next, consistency is key. Make sure you're hitting those deadlines, meeting expectations every time. And if for some reason you cannot, that's okay. But communicate that with them. Keep them updated. And communication then is huge. We need to be able to explain the value of UX design so that everyone is on board and excited about what we're doing. And own up to your mistakes. It's important that you do so. We're not perfect, and that's okay. Let's acknowledge when things go wrong and learn from them openly. Collaboration is key. UX designers rarely work alone. So work closely with your stakeholders to make sure you're all on the same page and working towards the same goals. Being adaptable, very crucial in our field. We need to be open to feedback, willing to make changes to our designs without letting our egos get in the way. Empathy is at the heart of what we do as UX designers. Let's try to understand our users, our stakeholders, the needs of our business before we start going into solution mode, proposing solutions. And finally, speak up for the users and also for yourself, right? We have a unique perspective and a valuable role to play in driving UX strategy forward. So remember, guys, trust is something that's earned through actions and not just words. Continue to demonstrate your commitment, your integrity, and your reliability in everything you do. And by consistently showing up and delivering results, you can continue to build trust with your colleagues, stakeholders, and users alike. So keep up the great work and remember, actions speak louder than words. Thank you, guys. Christina, over to you.